Good evening. I'll call this March 12th, 2024 Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting to order. Start with our meeting minutes from February 27th, 2024. May I have a motion on the item? Mr. Harrison,
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Levy. Mr. Harrison,
I reviewed the minutes. They look good to me. No edits.
Commissioner Levy.
I agree.
Any other comments? We'll start with, we have Commissioner Collins, you're gonna be sitting in for Commissioner Ford this evening. Are you good to go? Commissioner Collins? Can you hear me?
Yes, I do have to hop off though I have a busy night tonight, so how long do you think this meeting will go on?
If I knew it, I'd be happier to know, but I don't know.
Okay.
When you're ready to hop off, or do you want to just defer to Commissioner Siebert this evening?
You can defer to Commissioner Siebert.
Is that fair for everybody?
Glad I showed up.
Commissioner Siebert, you're up on deck. So Commissioner Collins, stay as long as you need to. Commissioner Siebert, you'll be on for Commissioner Ford this evening,
Sounds good.
at least on everything that needs votes. Yes. Any other comments for the commission or questions regarding the minutes? We put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. 7 ayes, so passes unanimously. Next item is 250 Taymor Drive, request of St. Catherine's Academy for 100% release of a $110,380 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in the R3 zone. Ms. Harrigan, are you giving something tonight?
So within your packet, you have some correspondence from the engineering department from Anthony Santiago. And he walked the site with Jim, as well as Walt Stapleton, who handles some of the consultant inspections. And I think they found that it was satisfactory to release the 100% bond.
Thank you. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Braun,
Motion to approve.
or a second? Commissioner Siebert, seconds. Commissioner Braun?
Do we know what the questions were that Mr. Santiago had? It sounds like it must be minor because they didn't really go into detail in their report.
You know, I'm not specifically aware. It might have been questions that were answered when they did the inspection.
Okay, thanks.
Anything further, Commissioner Braun? Commissioner Siebert?
No.
Any comments, questions from the commission based on what we've heard in the sign off? Seems pretty straightforward. And put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. 5 hands, 6 hands.
Aye.
And aye, so it passes unanimously. Next item is 515 Stilson Road, referral from the Historic District Commission to designate 515 Stilson Road as a historic property subject to Historic District Commission jurisdiction. Ms. Harrigan?
So the information in your packet, just get to that item. So this has been submitted to us from the Historic District Commission. When there's a standalone property, state statute requires referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the information before you summarizes the features that they feel are appropriate with the designation, namely that the original structure was part of the original agricultural history of Fairfield. with the original portion of the structure dating back to 1820. And most of the additions to the structure around 1868 or so. So this is it's one of the oldest structures in this particular neighborhood. And it does have ties to Fairfield's agricultural history. Outside of that, I think Jim said that maybe there was going to be somebody from the Historic Commission who could comment, but I don't see anybody online. I don't certainly see Adam online to be able to do that.
Let me ask just in case, is there anybody from the historic district speak on this application? Hearing none. Ms. Harrigan, I assume the property owner is, they approved this, right? I saw that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to. Is there a motion on, can I have a motion on this item, excuse me?
Well, we're supposed to just be giving guidance, right? We don't make.
Oh, yeah, right, so it's,
So my motion is to give guidance that I'm in favor of this.
yeah, the referral is an affirmative referral.
Okay.
Yes, motion to grant, referral, positive referral.
So a motion for positive referral?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll get the gist of it. Is there a second? Commissioner Harrison,
Second that.
Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of lengthy material. There was an extremely detailed report about the history of this, as well as a very lengthy letter by the family of the prior owner, and it's very interesting. And certainly in this part of town, we should preserve what little we have left of our historic history going back hundreds of years. I only have one thought, and I don't know if we can't put conditions on it, but I would like to see some more native plantings on that property, but I don't know if you can do that, or even if the Historic Commission can ask for that. It seems a little barren, but that was just a suggestion I would make. But it's a beautiful, it's a good condition. It's a beautiful addition to the town right there. And it's also in a part of town that could use some history. So I'm certainly in favor of supporting this. I think it satisfies all the statutory requirements. And I guess the Historic Commission would be the one that actually does the designation. So I would recommend approval after reading through I've never seen such a lengthy report with footnotes and citations and everything else, photos, maps.
Thank you, Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I would concur with what Commissioner Braun said. I was very impressed with the lengthy narrative and it was very interesting. And I'd like to see if we can more historic properties on the side of town as well. And I think it does meet our statutory requirements.
Any other members of the commission? I concur with the referral. I think it's, in addition to very elaborate submission given to us, it's certainly a positive for the town. Put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. 5 hands.
Aye.
And 2 on remotely, so passes unanimously. Old business, 95 Chester Place, request of asset management consultants on behalf of Walter Buck, 100% release of a $48,570 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an R3. Ms. Harrigan.
This was also reviewed by our engineering department and found that all items required as part of the bond have been completed to their satisfaction.
Thank you. And thank you for pulling double duty tonight with the narratives and the IT support always. May I have a motion on the item?
Approved.
Commissioner Levy approves, second Commissioner Siebert. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, and based on the recommendations of town engineer and the site walk, I'd approve. And it appears that this was almost 10 years that the money's been on hold, so it's time.
Commissioner Siebert? Any further? I agree. It's pretty straightforward. Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. 5 hands.
Aye.
And then two affirmatives online, passes unanimously. Old business, again, zoning regulation amendment, application of Pequot Realty LLC. Amend section 25.7 of the zoning regulations to permit payment in lieu of below market rate units. Ms. Harrigan.
Okay, so I have staff comments from Jim on this one. The application seeks to amend section 25.7.10 to allow for a payment in lieu of a payment of a fee in lieu for providing below market rate units in an inclusionary development of 10 or more units. As proposed, the fee option would be exclusively at the discretion of the commission and not permitted for dwelling units intended to be rented. The proposed fee is 250% of the median area income for a family of 4 in the Bridgeport-HUD metro area. The payment is proposed to be made prior to the issuance of a zoning permit for construction. The applicant asserts that certain development types have the potential to create a hardship on a below market rate purchaser in terms of the ability to afford long-term maintenance and other carrying cost obligations. This is more magnified in smaller scale developments. The proposed fee is modeled after several other Fairfield County municipalities. The Affordable Housing Committee acknowledges that affordable home ownership units present some unique challenges and offered support of a fee in lieu on a limited case-by-case basis. The Affordable Housing Committee, however, suggests the formula for the fee should be increased to 350% of the greater of the statewide or area median income, resulting in a fee of $418,250 per unit, which would be more in line with the actual cost to produce a comparable off-site unit. Standard considerations for a regulation amendment include: is the proposal consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development? Does time, experience, and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment? 3, has it been demonstrated that the proposal is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? That's all I have for Jim's comments.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Levy?
I would move to deny the proposed amendment as worded. At the appropriate time, I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah, this is Jeff. I would second Commissioner Levy's denial of the motion.
I love that you made a motion to deny. Makes me feel so good.
It happens on occasion.
It does,
I
yeah,
didn't hear the whole motion to deny as written. Was there?
As written, yes.
as written, yeah.
It's a motion to deny.
The irony is great. Go ahead, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with this one for the last week. And I've got a number of concerns.
Speak up for Commissioner Braun.
Yeah, I have a number of concerns about this proposal. Number one, you know, our current zoning regs, which the proposal with 10% at 80% affordable. One of the purposes is to have diversity within our neighborhoods. And that reflects a desire to have these affordable units, you know, throughout town. And with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, almost all of them are east of North Benson Road as it stands. So I think the primary purpose of our regulations was to, again, promote the, you know, having affordable units throughout all of Fairfield. Now, in this particular case, we're dealing with a situation which is very different than most of the 830G applications we've had, which are rentals. They're, as far as other than town-sponsored owner affordable units, for instance, on Quincy Street, and I think there's one over by the old Coles. I'm only aware of one, which was the one by Pequot Library, let me just, what was that, Westway? And on that one, there were 2 units, and it was condominium unit and owner occupied. And one of my concerns about this application as presented is it's at 250%, which might be somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 per unit, which would, even if we got 600,000, that's not going to provide for 2 units in Southport. In addition, there's also a problem when we do receive funds in the Affordable Housing Fund. The town is at somewhat of a disadvantage in terms of the timetable with competing with developers who can act far more quickly than we can, going through various commissions and so forth necessary to implement affordable housing. That being said, there's also a big concern about, whether this would allow basically a windfall for the developer. And in that regard, I looked at the checking, what's online from the, town assessor, vision appraisal. And at 489 Westway, in that Westway developed, most of the units in 2018 were in the neighborhood of 1,100,000, 1,200,000. 489 Westway, an affordable unit was sold at 80% for 386,000, which means that there was a difference between the market value and what the affordable unit went for of about 600,000 or 700,000. Also, unit 461 Westway, that one went for 235,000. So roughly $1 million difference. So I don't know why any proposed regulation would be premised on a multiple of median income. If the applicant does wish to come back to us, if this is denied, with a reasonable proposal, if we were to ever consider a fee in lieu of, at the very least, the standard should be the difference between the market value of the proposed unit and the purchase price by the affordable unit, so that 100% of any profit or windfall that would be obtained by the fee in lieu of would go for the affordable housing. So basically, for 2 reasons. Number 1, I prefer that we get the units. And number 2, the proposal which includes, a provision for determining the amount of the fee is significantly less than what I would consider to be adequate. And also, just as a final point, the concern that prompted this is, and it is a reality, that in owner-based affordable housing, there have been situations where there are foreclosures because between assessments and common charges and other unanticipated expenses, it becomes prohibitively expensive for the owners of the affordable units to meet the obligations of the condominium. But I reviewed both our regulations, which do reference 830G, I think it's 830G2 and various numbers and letters after that. But common charges are included in 830G in the determination of what the cost is for the affordable unit. So if there was ever, so in terms of any, affordability plan, it should reference with an owner base that the common charges are a factor in the standard. That's it.
That's fine. Thank you. Commissioner Randolph, you seconded, so the floor is yours.
Okay, I submitted some comments in writing to Emmeline. I'll just read them. I will not vote in favor of the zoning regulation amendment to section 25-7-10, which requests payment of a fee instead of providing below market rate units in an inclusionary development of 10 or more units. Here are my reasons. 1, the proposed fee of 250% of the area median income for a family of 4 in the Bridgeport HUD metro area, 142,008, falls significantly short of the goal to provide below market rate units. The suggested payment of $357,000 is far below the current home values in the zip code area 06890, which are currently $1.2 million. While any payment to the housing authority is better than nothing, it is insufficient to construct a single additional housing unit. Number two, the applicant's assertion that certain development types could create a hardship for below market rate purchasers is not a strong reason to amend the zoning regulation. I appreciate the applicant's entry of this concern into the record and request that the developer ensure below market rate unit owners are not unduly burdened, potentially leading to insolvency or eviction. Number three, the applicant mentioned that other communities, specifically Westport and New Canaan, have adopted the payment in lieu of process to avoid co-locating below market rate housing and luxury developments. While this approach might work elsewhere, I don't believe that the residents of Fairfield support exclusionary values. Our town takes pride in welcoming all residents. Number four, the proposed amendment is inconsistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, which recommends the production of smaller multifamily to help make housing more affordable for singles and couples, but also for mid-sized families who have less competition for the housing that meets their needs. Number five, this amendment would legitimize and endorse exclusionary zoning practices, compromising responsible planning and future conditions. There's no reasonable need for this state amendment. Number six, lastly, the applicant has failed to demonstrate that the proposed amendment is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town. I thank the applicant for proposing a thoughtful, well-designed multifamily housing development in an appropriate area of town that will enhance our community and set a new standard for future development.
Thank you, Commissioner Randolph.
Get that?
I did. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Other comments from the commission? Commissioner Braun?
I support the amendment, but at a higher rate. I think it's horribly complex to try to figure out what the fee, what the sale price should be. I still can't understand it, honestly, even though I practice real estate law. I don't understand how you come up with what the price would be for selling an affordable unit. Because it seems to me you have to, the carrying cost of the unit has to be at the 30% AMI. And I don't know how you come up with that. So I find that complicated. And also I was going to ask Emmeline, the very few we have that are owner occupied affordable units, were they sold by the town to the unit? Were they town projects? I know Westway was a private one, but that has its own problems. That was kind of a unique situation. But the other couple of ones we have, how was that? How did we get to there? How did we do that?
So those are fairly close to here, and those were part of the old Navy housing site. And so the town purchased those, they rehabbed those, and then they sold them at a deed restricted price. And so when those are deed restricted in perpetuity, and when those resell, they have to be limited based on households that qualify to purchase because they're limited income households. What is happening with that Navy housing site, just to be clear, is those are presently being repurchased by the town in order to come back with a development that's going to go from single family to duplex that are then also flood compliant, because right now, based on when those structures were rehabbed, a lot of them are not flood compliant. So, but those are intended to be an ownership model as well. The other ownership units that are presently under construction are the ones that are on Greenfield Street, close to the Floor and Decor, which are going to be 2 duplexes, also for sale, deed restricted to income eligible households. And those are going to be managed by Habitat for Humanity and deed restricted in perpetuity.
So in those instances, it's not a condo, which makes it simpler also because you don't have common charges. And that would have to be factored in probably to the unit owner's monthly bill, right? Which would have to arrive, that the mortgage, taxes, insurance, common charges would have to be 30% of AMI, right?
Well, for the duplexes, for example,
Mhm.
they're able to kind of create the ownership kind of right down the middle. So it makes long-term maintenance much easier
Mhm.
because it's much simpler to kind of have your side that you maintain and the other side that you maintain, and all of the systems are unique and separate. In a multi-unit building where you don't have a duplex situation or townhouses that are one by one by one, and then you might have some sort of common maintenance of like firewalls, for example, it becomes a little bit more complicated with multiple units where you also have a yard that can't be specifically delineated in half, for example, where then you do have to maintain a property in common. So those charges are going to be necessary.
And the town, it also, it seems like the main issue here is how to set the fee, okay? Because I don't see how you build something in a neighborhood that goes for $1 million. We saw this on Mill Plain Road also. I don't see how anyone would build something that goes for $1 million and sell it to someone for $300,000. It would have cost more than that to build it. I don't comprehend how that would ever be done with inclusionary zoning, which last time we discussed this on the, Mill Plain Road, it just seems like that's why we don't have any ownership inclusionary zoning that's done by a private developer. It doesn't even make sense. So that's one reason, but I wonder, the 350 % of AMI. Can you explain how that works, how that calculation works? And that's what the Affordable Housing Committee has recommended,
That's correct.
that the fee in lieu would be
Higher.
it would
Yeah.
add up to $418,000 per unit?
That's what they're requesting, yes.
Could you just explain how we get from point A to point B and what's included in that calculation? 350%.
What are you asking about? How the median income is calculated or
How we get to the 350% versus the 250%? Should it be higher, perhaps?
Well, I think that's up to us.
I mean, I'm asking for, Emily's more of an expert on this than I am, certainly. Like, what is your thought on that? Should it be higher? Could it be higher? Is there a problem with it being higher? Other
Well-
towns have it a little lower.
I think you have an application that's been presented to you by an applicant. And it's up to the commission to discuss whether or not they feel like that's an adequate request. I think that the comment by the Affordable Housing Committee, they're indicating to you that they feel like that is too low to viably produce a unit. So that's why they're requesting an increase. Whether realistically, once you get past land costs, construction costs, all of those things, whether it should be a higher number, I couldn't tell you. I mean, we can certainly, right now the public hearing's closed, so we have to work with the information that we have. But, if you have longstanding questions, I think you should maybe indicate that in your discussion and then how you vote.
I have a calculation done by Steve Grothwell, who's on the Affordable Housing Committee. I see that he might be the chairman, I'm not sure, but he.
Is that in the record? Just.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in the record.
Thank you. Just want
He sent an email on February 27th. He's writing on his own behalf, not as the commission.
as long as it's part of the record.
Yeah, it's in the record. He gave two calculations, one and I'm trying to understand 350% of AMI. Why is that? Why is that what we use? I don't understand the logic behind it. That's supposed to be. What is the logic of using that as a number, as the criteria anyway, or any % of AMI? How does that relate to the value of a unit? Because they're saying it would go for 1.35 million. Cost of land, this is per unit, would be 600,000. So normally they would make a 750 profit. But then if you do the payment in lieu at 350% of AMI, that's $418,000 of change. Then they would make a profit of 331,000 per unit in this development, I guess, if that's what they go for, 1.3 million. Whereas if they built an affordable unit, it could only sell for, say, 350,000. I don't know how that number is arrived at, because I don't see
I
that.
think it's, I mean, I don't want to say it's arbitrary, but I think that, excuse me?
Work backwards.
Well, they work backwards or they just make decisions based on, factors that they have. I mean, Commissioner Levy proposed using fair market value differences. I suspect they use area median income because most any affordable housing generally goes off of median income, 80%, 60%. And they were probably working backwards of, okay, what if I need to use this fee in lieu to get other units, what do I use to get there? And I think it was Darien or New Canaan that uses 350%. Westport uses 250%, but they also, as Mr. Barnhart correctly noted, have a higher percentage of affordability than we do. So they can get away with that, so to speak. They're working on the numbers. So I don't want to say it's arbitrary. I think there's some analysis that goes to it, but I suspect the 350 is very much just not picking a number out of the air, but kind of working backwards and analyzing the best way to get to an amount of a fee, an amount of the fee that could be used to generate a unit elsewhere.
But does it matter what we think this would sell for if it was sold as an affordable unit? Is that part of our calculation?
Well, it could be. I mean, they're suggesting no, because they're going off of area median income, not fair market value. Commissioner Levy is suggesting we should. And I think that, fairly persuasive in a lot of ways. But the ultimate end goal is, I think, a calculation that gets to an amount of a fee to be used to develop or to buy or to get a unit elsewhere. So, I mean, you can make, again, I don't mean make up like arbitrarily, but you can derive a different calculation in some other way that gets you to the end goal. Different paths, I guess, lead to the same goal, potentially. So the question, I guess, is for us, first, are we willing to do a fee in lieu? Take the money instead of a unit in this application. And then the secondary consideration is how to derive the amount. Right now, the motion is to deny it as written. Commissioner Levy and Commissioner Randolph have given their kind of opinions to that, so.
Can I ask through you, Commissioner Levy, to explain his calculation of a fee in lieu based on fair market value as opposed to what the other towns
To
are
be
doing?
clear, my motion is to deny the proposed amendment as written, okay, which is at 250%. Everything else is sort of exegesis, my thoughts as to what, if anything, if we were to consider a fee in lieu, would be something that I might consider. And to my mind, you question why would they use, a multiple of, median income? And the answer is only because other people have done it, but there's no rational basis for that. If one were to look at something that's related to the property and the cost, it would be the difference between the fair market value of the unit and what the affordable unit would sell for. And the difference between that isn't necessarily profit because the expense may exceed that, but that is the benefit to the developer for being able to buy his way out of producing this unit. And that number, depending on the development, is probably closer to $800,000 to $1 million per unit, okay? And if somebody came before me and said, we're prepared to pay the difference between fair market value and what the affordable unit would sell for, and that would probably be a number which would allow for a unit to be purchased in proximity, that might be something to consider, but that's not what's before us. What's before us is 250%. And based upon that, which is in the proposed text amendment, I feel compelled that it needs to be denied. At a future date, we could look at all the possible permutations and ways that this might, in the appropriate situation, with our discretion, be an acceptable solution.
Well, I would I would like to give our commission the discretion to make these decisions. I'm just unclear on the math. I still don't understand how we come up with what an affordable unit would go for. I don't know how that gets determined. Seems to me you have to figure out the carrying cost of the property, whatever that unit owner would be paying, including common charges, taxes, insurance, and mortgage at prevailing rates. And then you back into a sale price. Is that, you understand, I'm asking Commissioner Lee. He seems to be the math whiz here. I don't know how you would figure out, how would we get to there? If that is sort of a criteria for figuring out if we could do a fee in lieu, how do we get to what the affordable sale price would be? Is it 350? That's what Mr. Glass,
Asking him in his mind
500.
or according to the regulation as written. As written, it's just pretty clear. They're going off of 250% of area median income, kind of not ignoring everything you just said, but they're trying to make it, streamlined, clear, and simple. If you're asking what he was suggesting, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I like,
Sorry.
Well, but we can do whatever we want, right? We can.
Well,
craft
let's
it.
be-
No, we can't.
let's be clear what we can probably do here. If we were to if we're to really rewrite this regulation, like Commissioner Levy suggested, we would probably have to deny it to have another public hearing.
Mhm.
If we were to just change 250 to 350 or higher or whatever, that would probably be okay for us to do in this session, because it's been the Affordable Housing Committee has suggested it. It's been discussed at length at the public hearing. The kind of idea is when you have an application, if you go less than the footprint, you can do it. You go outside the footprint, you can't do it. So what Commissioner Levy is suggesting, we need we need to deny with a public hearing. If you had, I think really, you had other suggestions, so be it, but the easy one is if you're just aiming at the 350 and you just cared about, I just want a certain amount, it needs to be 350 or 450 or 500, we could probably change the percentage. Anywhere in between, we'll talk about, but that's probably what we can do. That makes sense. Can I go down the line, Commissioner Siebert? Is that okay, Commissioner Braun?
I'm fine.
Commissioner Siebert?
Yeah, just so I understand Commissioner Levy's comments.
Can you speak up just a little?
Oh, sure. I believe you're stating that the fee in lieu of that was proposed is much lower than what you think it should be. Is that a correct
And-
statement, or?
And it's based upon factors which I don't think are relevant.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I would just say, the fee in lieu would contradict the fundamental goal of creating more affordability, especially as a relative to the inclusionary zoning regulation, correct? But we also know generational wealth is created by home ownership. And I think as we learned this weekend at the affordable housing seminar, people who would live in a deed restricted unit that they would buy, they'll probably recoup what they got, but they'll never be able to really get beyond that sale, right? No, that sale price. So really, there's no difference between renting and really buying here. Question for Mr. Levy, would you suggest we could maybe deny without prejudice so they could come back and we could have another public hearing?
Well, whenever we deny, it's without prejudice to come back on that.
Not for regulation.
But you want to be clear on that?
For regulation amendments, denying, I guess, without prejudice is kind of hand in hand. I think if it's a certain application, special permit, special exception, that's got what, 6 months to a year, maybe? Something like that.
Unless they significantly change the scope of the application.
Yeah, okay, so regulation, your call, but I think it's probably, the way you've said it is probably done that, but the request without prejudice, is that fair?
Without
Okay.
prejudice is fine.
Commissioner Randolph, is that okay to you, making a denial without prejudice?
Yes, it is. Thank you for considering it.
Thank you.
You have-
So we'll just be clear on that. So you
No,
hold
that's
that.
fair. That's been done.
Okay,
Anything further?
that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Corsillo?
Thank you. Yeah, I thought Commissioner Levy did a great job laying out the argument against the amendment as written. So I'll just echo those comments regarding the broader issue of a payment in lieu of below market rate units. I remain on the fence. 250 Pequot to me is a perfect example of a development where I would not accept a payment in lieu of below market rate, even a payment based on the calculation proposed by the Affordable Housing Committee for the reasons Commissioner Randolph outlined. But I don't want to shut the door on the possibility that there may be scenarios where accepting a fee may be based on a calculation more in line with the one proposed by the Affordable Housing Committee, or the framework I think Commissioner Levy was getting at could make sense. But in any case, as written, I think it falls woefully short, so I'll be voting to deny.
Commissioner Braun?
If we were to say raise the, I assume AMI is 139,000 for a family of 4. That sound right? I did the
Well, this-
backwards calculation.
They're saying in their regulation, and I'm not sure, I mean, it goes by what let's say it. Multiplied by the current area median of a family of 4 for the Bridgeport COD HUD metro rent area. So that they're citing a source.
Well, if you back into the 418,050,
Well, I'm going off of
5%.
I think they've, in their regulation amendment proposal, they've given the 2023 area median income according to that source.
It's 119,000. That sounds right.
Well, I got 103.9. But they're citing a specific source to be used for the area median income.
If we were to increase it to 400%, you'd be getting like in the 500s per unit. And that would, for this size development, that would result in, I think, over $1 million into the Affordable Housing Trust. And I think right now, the Affordable Housing Trust has, I think, after our last meeting, someone sent us the status report. It's like in the 600s right now. So that would more than double what we have. I'm inclined to follow the Affordable Housing Committee's recommendation, but maybe jack it up to 400%. It's hard to do because this is kind of a unique situation being in Southport. There might be other parts of town where 400% wouldn't make sense. It's totally to our discretion, but if we put a % down, then we're kind of stuck with that if we change the definition.
Any further, or can I jump in?
Explored following what the Affordable Housing Committee says, and is it possible to get more information from them before we vote? Or
Are they a town agency we could do that for? I guess they technically are.
Well, we can certainly rely on Mr. Barnhart if you have follow-up questions that are directed. The expiration date for your deliberations is May 2nd. So you do have time if you want to ask additional questions from staff. And Mr. Barnhart would be staff.
But I don't think the Affordable Housing Committee is necessarily staff.
No, but they rely on Mark's
No,
expertise
that's
as
fine,
well.
yeah, but I just want to
Yeah.
be clear as to if we decide that we would be going to Mark Barnhart,
yeah,
and not the Affordable Housing Commission.
the reason I'm hung up on this is thank you, Ms. Harrigan. We went to a retreat, they called it, Affordable Housing Retreat. I got a whole notebook on it, and I filled a page with the complicated scenario of how you figure out how you can do a sale. It's extremely complicated, and I don't even know how you do it. I also don't think it'll ever happen in a place like Southport. I just don't see it happening. So I think we have to allow ourselves the discretion to say we'll take the money instead. But I would like a little more information about the math, and perhaps Mr. Barnhart can bring send us some of the slides or his explanation on, because I believe he supports with the Affordable Housing Committee. I assume he does, since he's the support staff for the Affordable Housing Committee, right? I assume he could provide us some more detail or the logic or the rational basis for coming up with the calculation. I mean, all I have really in terms of sort of an explanation or a comparison is what Mr. Gruffel gave, but that's not from the committee. That's just on his own, and I don't, I would like to give ourselves the discretion to be able to make these decisions. I only worry that if we pick one number that we have to apply townwide, it wouldn't make sense on Greenfield Street, but it might make sense in Southport. But maybe the money should be much higher, and maybe we should have more discretion to pick the percent or pick that amount based on what they submit to us, but give ourselves the discretion to make that decision.
Well, I think that if you're suggesting that not having a single percentage would be we can possibly do 350 to 450.
Like a range.
We would probably definitely have to have another public hearing on that because the application is for a single percentage to be used townwide. And I don't think I think making that proposed amendment would go outside the scope of this application far enough that we would have to have a separate application. Because that's bringing in, well, now we're potentially using different, we'd have to have some kind of evidence, justification, or even, frankly, public input on potentially using different percentages in different areas of town. So I would think that would, if that's where you want to go, you almost have to, I think, follow Nile without prejudice.
On prior text amendments, we've done quite a bit of editing. What's the difference between that and this then? How far can we go to edit a text amendment once it's been noticed?
In my view, you always have to stay within the footprint. Going less restrictive, I guess. For example, you have an application for a 4-story unit. You want 3 stories. Can't go to 5 stories in that application. I've said, at least in this case, I think you can change the 250 and go higher, which I guess is technically outside of the footprint. The reason simply being because it's been presented and discussed enough at the hearing that it's justifiable. I think if you are doing a different calculation like a Commissioner Levy is with fair market value, or potentially, as you're suggesting, doing a range for the commission to consider different applications, potentially in different parts of town or just different applications in general, I think that lends a different public policy aspect that is outside the scope of this, because this is looking for just a straight 250 across the town. Sarah, got any thoughts?
My only thought is that we are not the applicant. So I would say if you're going to make amendments to the proposed regulation change, I think we would have to take a pause, table, consult with the applicant, whether this is what they would like to proceed with, because we're not the applicant. So I agree that when we get to our zoning regulation discussion, after we adopt our POCD, we update our zoning regs, that we should probably talk about additional tools in our affordable housing toolkit. But this is not our application at this point.
Another fair consideration. Sorry, no.
Hey, Tommy, it's Jeff.
Go ahead, Commissioner Randolph.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to highlight 3 issues that trouble me on this. One of them is that the percentage is inadequate to basically create a replacement unit, which is really what we've been talking about. The intent of the law or the ordinance is to have a unit, an affordable unit, basically as part of any incremental development in town. And it would take a very high percentage to do that. I don't think we know what the replacement cost is. We know it's higher than 250%. So that's, my concern number 1. Concern number 2 is timing. We heard from Mr. Barnhart last week that there really aren't sufficient opportunities to create affordable housing. So even if we put money into the fund, which would be, well received, there's no place to create affordable housing. So the money would, it'd be very difficult to deploy. Whereas the Pequot Avenue project is real, and we could create 2 affordable units in a specific time frame. So it'd be certain. And the number 3, so those are 2 practical issues. Number 3 is more of a philosophical issue of whether we want to continue to have really economic segregation in town. And I think it's we compare ourselves to New Canaan and Westport. Those are those towns are much more economically homogeneous than our town is. And just my feeling, and I've lived in the town for a long time. One of the things that I think we pride ourselves on is inclusion. So that's really my third concern about, taking the money in lieu of, is that we're moving away from an inclusionary approach towards housing. Thanks.
Thank you. I can jump in with some thoughts. Ultimately, as I said, this type of application, as we've said, depends on what formula it is to get to of what the fee is to potentially replace lost affordable housing unit in the potential application. 250, I think, is inadequate. It relies on Westport, which has a much higher percentage of affordable housing, which is probably why they use 250. But considering our current percentage of affordable housing, we're more in line, I think, with Buchanan and Darien at 350 using this formula. And frankly, 400, 450 would be fine with me as well. Because I'm not sure that I'm not sure how in favor I am of this kind of tool. I agree with Mr. Barnhart and others who have said, I think the goal is to get a unit. And we can take the unit from the application, it's there, it's because it's proposed, it's going to be built, or you can take the money, put it into the fund, which is a good thing. But as Commissioner Levy rightly pointed out, we as a town have challenges making units ourselves. We need a variety of approvals. We're just slow in getting, land acquisitions or building acquisitions when compared to private developers. So as well-intentioned as it is, I think it leads to, while money for that purpose, maybe not, the most efficient use, because we're getting the opportunity of just getting the unit, I think, is better than putting money into a trust fund, to a fund, excuse me. I know why they're limiting this to rental only. And I understand his rationale and the applicant's rationale and the practicality of owning affordable housing units in a condo with homeowners with common charges and HOA fees and what else is added there. I think there are better ways of protecting those units than this. I think some kind of conditions or bylaws that make sure that the affordable unit holders are prorated in their fair share, and their share of those charges is the way to go. We also know of another tool where it's not a fee in lieu of, it's a unit in lieu of, where instead of them giving us money, they propose and they go out and they find another unit somewhere else to replace the potential unit that they're going to be released from in their current application. Now that's fraught with challenges in its own right, their size, quality, all that stuff. But at the very least, that you're using the private developer. He's not going to give us, if for a good reason, they're not going to give a unit in their application or their project. They go out and they find a unit elsewhere. Now, obviously, we can't do that here. That's way outside the scope. That's a lot of considerations. That's something we can do later, should we, if we get to that point of redoing our regulations. But I'd be more in favor of that. But again, mindful that that has a ton of considerations in its own right. I just am cautious of this fee in lieu as a tool that, even here, I think, and I don't know this, but my guess is that most people would not, if we adopted this fee in lieu, even at 450 or whatever, would probably not use it for this Pequot. Or if we are tempted, I think that shows that we're more likely to be tempted in the future to use this fee in lieu. And all of a sudden now we don't have a lot of units. We have a lot of money in a trust fund that's difficult, excuse me, I say trust fund, but in the trust, that would be difficult to use in its own right. So I think taking the units is a better course of action in general, but certainly the amount is too little. And I'd be curious and open to as Commissioner Levy said, getting more money, so to speak, because maybe it is at our discretion to use it. So if we were able to throw in $1 million from an application in one part that makes sense and maybe not on the other. I'm just concerned that if we make this a tool that give us the opportunity to use it, that we are going to be tempted to use it. Here in Pequot, so we lose 2 in Pequot. Stilson jumps to mind, though I don't remember if that's rental or not, but that's coming down. We have at least we had a presentation on it. Who knows what will come to us later. We know that traffic and density is going to be a problem there. And all of a sudden, well, hey, maybe we can do a fee in lieu, assuming that's ownership. And that will, we'll be tempted there. And I think we're always going to be tempted with traffic and density. And if we have this tool available to us, I think we will be tempted to use it. And we may not lose out on some units for that. At least the fee in lieu. I'd be interested in a unit in lieu, but that's not for discussion now. I throw that out there to the universe in general. But I do support the current application to deny. Mr. Braun.
I get a sense of whether we can table this till next time, since we have till May, to get just some more fodder, some more information from Mr. Barnhart, or we just don't have enough detail on the math at this point, in my opinion.
I mean, listen, obviously, even if, I'll let Commissioner Levy respond to that in a second, but even if he decides not to and Commissioner Randolph decide not to, and the vote goes forward, maybe it doesn't pass and who knows, but I mean, obviously, we can still ask the questions hereafter, even if it doesn't, but Commissioner Levy, motion to table.
Yeah, I would, with all due respect for Commissioner Braun, and I share her desire to fully address the issues that are presented by this potential text amendment. I don't think tabling it right now is appropriate, particularly considering that we have a pending application before us. As to whether we would ever want a fee in lieu of, unit in lieu of $1 million instead of 300,000, we're not going to have an answer to that by May 2nd, and that's based on 6 years' experience with this commission, which I think works very effectively and has a wonderful staff, but it's just such a complex issue. In addition, we have a pending application, which, if I have the opportunity to make a motion on that one, I'd be moving to approve, subject only to getting the affordability plan. So I'd like to move forward on Pequot, and tabling the issue of the text amendment is only just, would it be an impediment to moving forward on the proposal? So.
And again, I think the math is, I don't want to say arbitrary, but I think they are just making a decision as to what input to use to get to a certain amount that they think is appropriate. Using area median income as a source and then applying 250% to get to an amount. I mean, I think that's, as far as my research can tell and looking at I think that's, it's an educated guess, I guess, at the very least. I don't know what else can be done, Can we put this to a vote? I think, any further comments or questions, or can we put this to a vote? All those in favor of the denial without prejudice, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Nice. Heard one. Commissioner Corcel, did you say? Well, Commissioner Randolph seconded. Commissioner Randolph, would you say aye? Did we lose him?
No, he's here.
Okay. 5 hands, well, 4 hands, Commissioner Corsillo's 5 hands. I just didn't hear. Was that Commissioner Randolph who said aye?
That was me. That was Corsillo.
No, that's what I thought. Commissioner Randolph, are you there? I know he's seconded, but
I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you now. Is your vote?
Yeah, yes. Yes, so I'm sorry. Yes, I vote to, so please restate, because we're denying the motion, please.
I'll re-say what I said.
Yes.
All those in favor of the denial without prejudice, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, so 6 ayes. All those opposed? Commissioner Braun passes 6-1. Oops. Yeah, thank you for the discussion. Next item is 250 Pequot Avenue, special permit application, Pequot Realty LLC pertaining to an 18-unit residential development neighborhood design district. Ms. Harrigan.
The applicant seeks special permit approval to demolish a converted industrial building presently used for offices with the intention of building a new building with 18 residential units. The site is in the Neighborhood Design Business District. The applicant has previously received variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals on August 11th, 2022 to allow first floor residential occupancy, to allow an increase in height from 3 stories and 30 feet to 4 stories and 40 feet, to permit 100% residential occupancy, to increase total floor area from 100% to 126%, and to allow a building greater than 14,000 square feet. An inland wetland permit was granted for the project on June 7th, 2023. The details of that permit indicate that the current stormwater from the site is untreated. There will be a decrease in impervious area of 5,200 square feet. The detention system will detain the 2 through 100-year storm events consistent with the engineering department standards. The design does not meet the Inland Wetland Agency's requirement that the 10-year post-development peak flow rate be detained to the 2-year pre-development flow rate. As a condition of the wetlands approval, the applicant must either supply additional detention or provide a written explanation as to why the standard cannot be met. Either way, the engineering department concerns are satisfied. The site will be served by a 2-way ingress and egress drive at the northerly corner of the site and a 1-way exit only drive to the southerly side of the site. There are 53 parking spaces to serve the 18 units at 2.9 spaces per unit, mostly under the proposed building. Section 28.6.1 of the zoning regulations requires 3 spaces per unit or 54 spaces. However, this section permits the commission at its discretion to reduce the number of spaces for dwelling units in commercial districts by 50%. In this case, the reduction would amount to 1 space. The northerly 2-way drive has adequate intersection site distances both to the left and to the right. The southerly egress drive has adequate intersection site distance to the left. However, looking to the right, the Old Post Road intersection falls within the intersection site distance. In this case, stopping site analysis was utilized and findings that there is adequate site stopping distance for all legs of the nearby intersection for cars to be able to see exiting vehicles from the site. The town engineer has confirmed agreement on the sightline analysis. The applicant explained that the ultimate building design was the product of much discussion with the Southport Conservancy. The consideration for the special permits are found in section 25.7.7. Is the development shown on the site in architectural plans of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, to protect property values in the neighborhood, to preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and avoid undue traffic congestion. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan. I have a motion on the item. Commissioner Levy.
I would move to approve, subject to the applicant submitting an affordability plan consistent with 25.7.9 and 10.17.5 of our regulations. My understanding is there's no affordability plan on file.
That's correct, because they were proposing a fee in lieu.
So I wasn't sure. I thought I asked him if they relied upon that regulation amendment. I thought he said no, but I looked and I didn't see an affordability plan either. Yes, okay.
Which to my mind means.
No, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. Were there other, conditions of approval from staff? Was there the engineering report or they said there's?
Anything wetlands.
They're satisfied with what's been submitted. The other conditions are already part of the inland wetlands approval.
They're already part. Okay, thank you. May I have a second? Commissioner Braun. Commissioner Levy.
As is very clear from the applicant, they've worked closely with the neighborhood and the Southport Conservancy to come up with frankly, a beautiful product. Will enhance the neighborhood. And I think it meets all the criteria for the special permit. Is it going to harmonize with the neighborhood? It'll be an improvement. Along that stretch there. It'll make, it's a definite improvement, transitioning character. I mean, it's consistent with the neighborhood, which is both residential and commercial in that area. Sightline is fine, using a stopping distance from the intersection, even though it's a 5-way intersection, does not seem to present a problem. And if anything, it's going to enhance the beauty and appearance of the community. I would just simply point out that I have not seen an affordability plan, and I would trust that both our regulations reference 830G and I think 839, which do make reference to common charges being calculated in when determining the 30% to be allocated for housing cost. So based on everything there and anticipating that they will come up with an acceptable affordability plan, I would strongly recommend that we approve this project.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun?
Yes, I think the project is good, and I was pleased to see that the impervious surface is actually being decreased by 5,000 square feet from where it is now. Also, we did get that email from Conservation where they got added information on March 1st from the Huntington Group explaining, and this is way over my head, but explaining that they actually do meet the slightly stricter or different standards that Wetlands Agency has versus the engineering department. Am I correct in stating that?
Let me get the file.
It's engineering has a pre-development versus post-development. You'll have to explain, but Wetlands has a slightly different standard, which is more strict. The Huntington Company provided an explanation for the drainage calculations showing that the 10-year, 24-hour post-development storm is in fact being detained at the 2-year pre-development storm rates. And that satisfies the wetlands permit approval where they wanted them to get that. So I'm comfortable with that. And partly the reason for that is I think reducing the impervious surface. So
That's correct. And that's from Sarah Nisi, the Wetlands Compliance Officer.
and then so this project then would include 2 affordable units, and the only condition we would be adding would be to provide the affordable housing plan. And okay, then I'm comfortable with that.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I just want to laud the developer, the applicant, who really took great care, I think, in designing this building. I consider this area of Southport the kind of the gateway to the historical area of Southport, and beauty and design really matters. And I think they took great care in collaborating with the local preservation groups, and really appreciate that. So thank you and good luck.
Commissioner Levy, I think with you and Ms. Harrigan too, with the conditions of approval, I think we're being clear that in order for this approval to go forward, they need to have the requisite affordable units, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I haven't a chance to look up the regulations, but the regulations that you referenced are providing affordable units.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner Crusillo.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Corsello.
Yeah, I think this is a beautifully designed project and I commend the applicant for that. I think the amount of time they spent working with the Southport Conservancy on the design of this project really shows. And I think on top of that, I'm really encouraged to see multifamily housing in Southport and the inclusion of the below market rate units in there. I think is a great thing for Fairfield. So strongly in favor of this project.
Yeah, a win for Fairfield, a win for all stakeholders, I think. Beautiful project. Often, sometimes a lot of the Southport projects we get are acrimonious, and this one certainly wasn't, for all the right reasons and for obvious reasons. They did a great job. The cooperation beforehand certainly paid benefits. So, yeah, another win. Anything further, or can we put this to a vote? All those in favor of the motion to approve with the conditions stated, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
And an aye, so it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is our zoning compliance, 907 Post Road, west of Haven Hot Chicken, for a change of use medical office to takeout restaurant in a design commercial district.
Let me just get this on the screen. So this location for 907 Post Road is in what was formerly the Bob's Plaza. And this is taking over the lease space that was formerly Jenny Craig, closer to the corner. Just keep scrolling down. So the previous use was kind of medical clinic in nature, where they had appointments, they sold supplies. And so there's really no change in the parking requirement for this. A takeout restaurant is very limited in terms of its seating area. And per the proposed submitted site plan, there's very little seating, and their restaurant model is really a takeout model. And that's pretty much all I have.
Otherwise, in compliance all the way through.
Yes.
They'll do a site plan, not site plan, a sign plan with us at some point.
Well, the sign plan is not required as long as they meet the requirements of that plaza.
Okay, fair enough. May I have a motion on the item? Commissioner Braun?
To approve.
To approve. Is there a second? Commissioners,
We decide this tonight, right? Because it's compliance.
yeah, Commissioner Siebert, I'll give it to, if you don't mind. Seconds, so Commissioner Braun?
Is there any issue with parking? I mean, it's a huge halfway unused lot, but there's nothing in the material about parking.
There's no increase in parking, so it's a like for like use.
This is no longer there.
Asian hardware.
Commissioner Siebert? Anything?
There's a lot of parking.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, we had a really good discussion about parking at the affordable housing seminar this past weekend, so there's definitely no parking issue there, and look forward to discussing those regulation changes on parking. That's a separate matter.
Anything further?
Chicken wings.
Well, I was gonna say bold application for that area, I think.
Yeah.
Chicken, but let's say, wish them all the best. May I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, I already asked that. Can I put this to a vote? Can I put this to a vote, excuse me? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
6 hands and an aye, so it passes unanimously. Moving on to our public hearing. Catamount Road, petition of residents for scenic road status pursuant to scenic road ordinance. Is there we had somebody joining us remotely?
I'm the petitioner who's requesting designation of
Come on
Catamount
up.
Road.
If you're the applicant, come on up.
Here.
Yes, please. This is the first in my tenure, so I was looking forward to it. If you can just give us your name, please, your address, and just a comment.
And my name is Zohar Kazukian, and I live on Catamount Road. I've lived on Catamount Road for about 50+ years. And there are a number of streets off of Catamount Road that have been designated scenic roads. So I took it upon myself to reach out to Jim Wendt in terms of what the process is in regards to designating Catamount Road as a scenic road. So he walked me through the documentation that I would need. And then I put a letter in each of the mailboxes. I went to the assessor's database, got the addresses from the assessor's database and the property owners. And starting in October, I put letters in their mailboxes asking, what the purpose of the scenic road was and requesting their signatures. So it took me a couple of weeks to get all the paperwork and signs from the property owners, and I then submitted all the documents to Jim, who went through the process of verifying that it met the threshold of 50% or more of the lot owners on Catamount Road. So
When you reached out to were there any objections to the residents?
not really. There were some questions whether their taxes would go up or would impact,
Yeah.
they would impact their ability to do any development on their land. Some of the, and I think in my discussions with Jimmy indicated there's no limitation of what a property owner can do with their properties, not impacting the roadway.
But the roadway, making this a scenic road, I think that's limited as what the improvements to the roadway can be done.
Well, it provides a level of protection in regards to what the engineering department, if they want to do any improvements, they would have to sort of get the approval from town planning and zoning that it met the criteria. So, there's six criteria elements to designate a road as scenic. The Catamount Road meets 5 of the 6. So, it's a very long road. It also has a portion that goes into Westport, and joins Eastern Highway, so that portion of it obviously is not part of the request. So on the map, I went through each property owner, and there are other property owners who are not part of Catamount Road, but whose property abuts Catamount Road. So I got their signatures as well. So
Nobody made any explicit objection to this.
I was hoping to get, everybody, but I went to some of the houses like 3-4 times over the holidays, Thanksgiving. And, some people just.
Either they approved it,
I just couldn't reach them. So
either the neighbor approved it or no response,
Right.
or questions and then answers and no response. Okay. Commissioner Harrison, and then
Yeah.
we're on.
Thank you. It's Kazukian? Is that?
Kazukian, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kazukian, for being here. And I've ridden my bike, I should say, on that road. That's beautiful. What drove you to do this petition?
Well, I think the scenic road classification does provide some element of control in terms of what they can do to the roadway, in the future. Who knows what's going to happen in the future. So at least from a standpoint of retaining the scenic road designation, the town can't come in and alter, stone walls, eliminate mature trees from the side. And then Catamount Road is very curvy. If you've ridden on it, there's a lot of dead zones where, you got to be careful not going into the other lane of the traffic because you can't see anybody coming from the other side. So I think, designating it as a scenic road would provide some level of, protection for future development. Who knows what's going to happen,
Thank you.
Commissioner Braun.
So I see here as part of your package, you have input from police. Is there input from fire also regarding it wouldn't affect safety vehicle, any type of emergency vehicle?
I believe Jim went to the highway department, went to the police department, and went to the fire department.
and they all concurred that, designating Catamount Road as scenic would not limit any of their abilities to do their performance of whatever they need to do. So, and I think that's in the package information, that's attached to the hearing. And if you click on the attachment that Jim had put on the,
Yeah, I have that. I
and
don't,
all the email threads also from all the various
that.
departments.
and the 6 criteria, the only one you don't have is, you only need one of them, right?
Correct.
So it has to be either unpaved, you probably don't have that one, right? But you have, it's bordered by mature trees or stone walls. Traveled portion is no more than 20 feet in width. It offers scenic views. It blends naturally with the surrounding terrain. And it is near some kind of water body.
Correct.
And did Jim do a calculation of the number of people with frontage versus the number of people that signed the petition? I couldn't really do that if I'm looking.
Well, I believe he did the percentage of the lot frontage. I think it was like close to 60% of the,
Yeah.
what that translated to in regards to the number of people. I don't have that information. I think it was in the package.
I don't know if he gives the percent, but I'm sure he will at some point. We'll have that, but it's supposed to be a simple majority of.
Simple majority, according to the practice of what the town says it should have.
He does have that
Yep.
here.
Handwritten one here?
Yeah, there's a handwritten one in there.
Oh,
Ms. Harrigan.
50%.
Ms. Harrigan will answer.
He does have that here. And the interesting nuance to that is it had to be each individual property owner of interest. So even if it was a married spouse, if one disagreed with the other, you had to calculate that as well. So it ends up being 56%
Okay.
based on his calculation
That's 56% of explicit approvals. We don't know
of the frontage required
of the frontage required, excuse me.
and the
Owners of-
approvals granted.
Yeah, Jim told me that if the property is jointly owned by he or she, they both have to sign the request. And I think on the number of sheets that I submitted, I think there were 5 or 6, both the husband and wife or whoever, both of the parties signed the.
I would just add one comment. If you don't have fire, I can't tell from looking at all these emails, maybe they should, give an approval. I have police, DPW, engineering.
We'll follow up because I thought I saw fire in there, but
Maybe
it was merely scrolling through a little quicker. Commissioner Seaver.
Thanks for putting this out there. So if this wasn't, what would be exposed?
The downside is, they can come and change the gradation of the road. They can widen the road more than, what it already is. They can, a couple of years ago when UI had all the tree trimming project because of the electric project, so they cut down a number of trees, which was required because of the utility power was, we get notoriously outages of power up in that part of town. So, but I think, since then, all the departments that Jim contacted indicated that they saw no reason not to approve it. And I think one of the comments that was made was, let's keep the road the way it was Fairfield was, because if we improve it, people are going to go faster and faster than what they normally are going on now. So at least, yeah.
And just one other question. So this has no impact to snow removal, all of the town requirements for those 4 Catamount, right?
Right. There's not going to be any change to any department of the town in regards to designating this as a scenic road.
Commissioner Harrison.
I have a question. It might be more appropriate for Ms. Harrigan. And I know the complete streets policy is still kind of new. Would there be any conflict with that?
There could be,
Okay.
for example, if this was prioritized for a bike lane where you wanted to widen the road, it would have to come before the Plan and Zoning Commission in order to make that change, because if you act on this, what you're saying is that the scenic road characteristics of this roadway are what requires action by the town to preserve. So in a certain way, you are prioritizing keeping it the same.
So the scenic road delegate, assignment would kind of trump the policy? Is that what?
Well, potentially, because this wouldn't be a roadway that then would be targeted for significant other improvements. But I want to make clear that in the comments, for example, if bridges need to be replaced, those would be brought up to whatever the state or federal standards would be. And that's indicated in the comments here by Bill Hurley, the town engineer.
Thanks for knowing that.
There. Further questions? Or anything further from you? Your presentation? Which is fine. I'm not saying you need to.
I want to thank you for your time to consider the request.
If you can just give me a second, I'm gonna open it up to public comments. And after public comment, you have the right to say rebut or reply if there's objections or anything of the like. Is anybody, any member of the public who wishes to be heard on this application that's in this room right now? All with you, Attorney Fallon? Yeah, they're all with you.
Yes. It's my,
No, that's fine. Any member of the public that's joining us remotely or by phone wish to be heard on this application? Catamount Road, scenic road status. If you're joining us by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Any member of the public in person, remotely or by phone wish to be heard on this application?
See anybody?
No, okay. Not hearing anyone, I'll close the public comment portion of the application. Unless you have anything further, sir, we're all set. I'll close the hearing and we'll discuss next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Close the hearing on this matter. Moving on to our last item,
Oh, yeah. Do you want this one?
60 Katona Drive, special permit application of Hatfield LLC pertaining to conversion of an existing office building residential use design commercial district. Good evening, Attorney Fallon.
good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Nice to see you tonight. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing the applicant on this application, and with me are a group full of consultants who I'll introduce in the course of my remarks. I think as the board is very much aware, this is the property, by the way, that you are all familiar with, used as a office building for many years. I think, as you probably are aware from just personal knowledge and sitting here as you do week after week, the last few years have been difficult, including the pandemic challenge, and that's had a significant impact on the real estate market, most especially as it relates to the demand for office space in buildings such as these. So more than 2 years ago, my client started to look at and explore alternatives for the use of the building. And it's been determined after a lot of significant discussion, outreach to the neighbors, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that residential use is highly preferable in that it'll provide an appropriate transition between the commercial district of Black Rock Turnpike and the nearby residential neighborhoods. I think you're all familiar with this area directly across the street, or I believe it's Belvoir condominiums. And then as you proceed up Katona Drive, it becomes primarily, substantially, totally a residential area, but it is immediately adjacent to Black Rock Turnpike. So our proposal, if I could ask Emmeline to put the rendering up, sort of a before and we hope after picture. The after will depend upon your approval.
1 second. There we go.
There it is.
That one or the?
Actually, the one I'm looking for is the one that was submitted, I think I sent you yesterday.
It's here. I just have to figure out which one it is.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan.
There it is.
Is that it right there? Can we?
Yep.
That's it, right? There we go.
Gray or white?
Is that gray or white?
It's off-white.
What? Off-white. We're back to gray and white. That's becoming a big thing on me.
My colors.
Anyway, there's the proposal. Basically, what we're doing is we're renovating the existing building in terms of its interior. And I think using the word renovation as to its exterior maybe doesn't justify the work that our architect, who you'll meet in a minute, Alex Esposito, has done. We think it's a very nice, stunning building. We think it's a very, very nice enhancement to the neighborhood. We think it does make that transitional statement with regard to the commercial district and the residential district. We looked at other options here, and we determined that we did not want to overdevelop the site. We didn't want to seek a higher concentration of density than we thought was appropriate for the neighborhood. And so that's what we have done in this case. The residential units you'll see here is a total of 18 units, 4 two-bedroom units, 2 studio units, and 12 one-bedroom units. Pursuant to section 25.7.9 of the zoning regulations, 2 of the units will be deed restricted as affordable. And we will submit an affordability plan as part of your hopefully approval, designating the comparable units that will in fact be designated pursuant to the 8-30G standard of affordability. Now, we did go to
Thinking a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom?
That's what we're thinking of. We did go to the ZBA on August 2nd, 2023, and the ZBA, after public hearing, unanimously approved variances of section 12.14.16 to allow 100% of the square footage of the building to be used for residential purposes. And to allow use of the first floor, the ground floor, if you will, for residential purposes as well. We also received a variance of section 12.7.6.2 to allow us to maintain the side property line adjacent to the residential district at 24.99%, feet. I should point out that this is an existing condition and that we are going to maintain the existing footprint of the building, and it will not be enlarged, and the setback from the residential zone boundary will be the same as it is now. It will not be decreased. All other provisions of the zoning regulations are being complied with. Interestingly, the coverage of the current building is 24.26%. It'll be increasing 24.87%. That's a net increase of 236 square feet, basically covering certain areas of steps and things of that nature. The zone, of course, this property is in the design commercial district, allows coverage up to 75%. So our coverage is going to be 24.87. Similarly with the FAR, our FAR post completion of this project will be 63%. Although in the zone, the allowable FAR is 150%. The building, again, in keeping with our plan to make sure that the property enhances the adjacent residential neighborhood, is 2.5 stories in height, total of 37 feet, very much in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and certainly the provisions of the regs, which technically allow 4 stories and/or 40 feet. With regard to parking, in accordance with the authorization provided in section 28.6.1 of the zoning regulations, we seek approval of a reduction in the required parking to 44 spaces as we propose it. The zoning regulations provide that with regard to residential uses in this commercial district, the residential parking requirement may be reduced by up to 50%. The current regulations, as you know, require 3 spaces per unit. That would total 54 spaces. The applicant is proposing 44 spaces. So, and they will in fact replace a number of dimensionally non-conforming parking spots. If you look at the parking layout now, there's a number of spaces that do not conform to the regulation requirements. We are, of course, going to provide the required landscaping in accordance with regulations 28.6.1. I do think that the parking reduction for residential use of up to 50%, we're not looking for 50%. We're looking for a reduction of use of 19%. As I said, the required parking is 54. We seek 44 spaces. You'll hear from Mr. Cipolla, our traffic engineer. He did a parking analysis. He cites in his analysis, and I'm sure he'll say to you, the ITE standards with regard to parking adequacy for a development such as this. And we are well within that. So again, we do seek some relief from the parking, but not 50%, only 19%. We are absolutely confident that based upon the unit mix that we propose, the 44 spaces will be more than sufficient to provide for the required parking with regard to this proposed residential development. Certainly, the utilization of the property for residential use as we propose it is going to have far less impact with regard to parking and traffic than the previous office use that has been ongoing there for many years. And that's why we're so comfortable with the parking as we propose it. Our presentation tonight, I would want to point out, we did have a code review meeting here on October 3, 2023, and all the provisions of the code comments are reflected in the plans. We also did have a meeting, sent out invitations with neighbors. It was fairly well attended back in July. Won't speak for the neighbors, but based upon the input that we received at that meeting, we felt we were very well received, and they were very pleased by both the change to residential use, which they feel is consistent with their neighborhood, and the dramatic architectural and exterior improvements that we are making as part of this proposal. So our presentation tonight, Mr. Eric Rains of Eric Rains Landscape Architecture is going to walk you through the site layout. He'll also touch on our landscaping and lighting plan. Once he's concluded his remarks, I'll have the aforementioned Alex Esposito, our architect, give you an overview, especially with regard to the design elements of the exterior of the building. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Steve Cipolla of Hardesty in Hanover to give you just an overview of our traffic evaluation that was submitted, and I think it's dated February 8th, 2024. Our site engineer, Mr. Dean Martin, is here. Should you have any questions with regard to the site engineering, which has been reviewed and approved by the engineering department. So at this time, Mr. Rains.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, John. Eric Rains, landscape architect, for the record. Which one? Yeah, the plan, site plan rendering.
Do you want your site plan or the existing?
My site plan. I'll just follow the traffic movement so we can move through the site in that direction. As was mentioned, we have a reduction in the parking, which gives us opportunity to improve the dimensions of the parking that we're retaining, but it also gives us the opportunity to introduce canopy trees into the parking lot that will go a long way in reducing the scale of the whole property from side to side. We've taken advantage of the planted islands, as you can see across the lower portion of the view there, to introduce those canopy trees and then get one on the other side. So when you look into the property, you don't look straight through the property any longer. You'll look and see the canopy of a tree. So it just will make the scale of the property reduce dramatically to help give the new building, a more of a resting spot within the site as opposed to dominating the site the way it does today. Driving into the site on the left, you'll see the addition of an ADA parking spot and the ramp that gets you up to the door. So we're improving that the use of the building in that way, making that accessible and using it as an element to access the new front door that Alex has put together. Driving farther into the site, the back of the property, we're lining with a row of evergreen plantings to give some buffer between this property and the property to the sort of the east of us or the back of the site. So that planting doesn't exist today, and it all just sort of runs together as one space. And so we feel that introducing that row of evergreen plant material would help give some separation between our property and the neighboring property, and then also give them further protection of the movement of vehicles that would be occurring on site. As you round the back of the building, the loading space is there in that upper right corner, which is adjacent to bicycle parking stands that would be part of the proposal. And then from there, additional canopy trees, you'll see them, those four that line the way on the way toward Katona. The area at the more on the western end that faces Katona, between there and Katona is where we've planted or proposing to plant several more trees. But also in addition to that would be lower plantings that would give us broader seasonality with perennial type flowers and flowering and grasses that would be a transition from the public sidewalk up to the facade of the building, and it actually introduced a little bit of a lawn area in there for the future residents to enjoy. Lighting wise, you'll see on the lighting plan, they're shown here, but it's a little bit hard to see. We've placed the lighting on the perimeter and then had full cutoff on the back so that it throws the light forward. And the analysis that's in the plan shows you how that light will actually be hitting the ground, which contains it to the site, so that the perimeter of the site on the adjacent properties is not being illuminated. And then the fixture selections themselves, there's an image in the set that you can reference on the plans, but it's a fixture that has completely downward grow, it's full cutoff. And it's a very visually light sort of design. It's not a heavy carriage light kind of light. It's something that's a little simpler and cleaner.
Commissioner Braun.
A couple questions. Somewhere in the plans, it said there's a decrease in impervious surface. That might have been in the stormwater report. I don't know if anyone's gonna, do you know where that decrease would take place just from the landscape?
Mr. Martin.
Talk about that? Okay.
Mr. Martin will answer that.
And then, so you're actually not removing trees, you're adding trees from what's there now? And where are you putting the evergreens again? So that's Katona on the left.
Correct.
And Black Rock Turnpike would be up on top, like,
Correct.
you're right below McDonald's, kind of like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And where is the buffer of new evergreens going? Because I already see trees on the back facing the other condos.
In this view, to the far right, you see that darker circle in the bottom right?
Yeah.
And then those series of dots all the way up the page.
Oh, okay.
Those are the evergreen, the row of evergreens I was mentioning.
So you're actually filling in an area that doesn't have trees with trees that aren't, you're not getting rid of the trees that are there already. Okay. And then one other question about, there was a comment by our zoning staff about, is it possible to use any of the green space in the front to put some benches or things like that for the tenants to use?
The lawn area that we've established is that underneath those trees, I don't know if it could zoom in or not, but the lawn area that's there in the front is where something like a bench could be placed. Yes.
Could I ask Mr. Martin, Dean Martin, our engineer from Grumman Engineering, he'll address your question. And as I understand it, it was the reduction in the impervious and where the reduction is occurring?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mr. Rain, let me ask, is there any other questions for Mr. Rains? Rains, right?
Yeah, it's Jeff. I've got a couple of questions.
So let's go through. Commissioner
can you hear me?
Randolph, go ahead. Yes, we
Yes, thank
can.
you. Okay, good. So the current unit count's about 18 units with 44 spaces.
Correct.
Which is a reduction of what's required. Thank you for doing that, but the project still seems to be a little bit overparked. Is it possible to reduce the parking spaces and increase the planted areas and create additional vegetative buffers?
It's possible. That's what, as I said before, Commissioner Randolph, we've got right now your regs, which I think we've all talked in the past about other applications. It might be a little overly parking there, but
Yeah,
right now they require 54 spaces. We're showing 44. That's a reduction of 19%, well below the 50%. Now, in Mr., I don't want to steal his thunder, but it relates directly to the question. In Mr. Sepola's commentary at page 2, he has a section on parking needs analysis. And I'll read that part of it that I think is pertinent to your question. It says, he obviously cites the Fairfield regulations, as I just did. And then he says, in addition to the town of Fairfield regulations, parking rates from, quote, Parking Generation Manual Number 5 edition published by ITE were reviewed. For this type of development, a parking ratio of 1.52 spaces per unit would be needed. For the proposed 18 dwelling units, a total of 28 parking spaces would be needed based upon ITE, or 37% less than the proposed parking supply. There is sufficient parking based upon the ITE parking rate. So you could make an argument that, under the ITE standard, we are somewhat overparked. Having said that, we want to make sure that we have a very viable, attractive development for prospective tenants. This will be a rental, by the way. And therefore, we did err on the side of providing additional parking beyond the ITE standard to accommodate, unique guest situations or things of that nature. So really, that's something that I'd leave to the discretion of the commission. But we'd like not to see the parking to be substantially reduced. If you determine to reduce the parking,
basically the double row of angled parking right now is an 18-foot aisle, which is, it's greater than the minimum. The plan north or east portion, that buffer by McDonald's looks pretty narrow. If you could widen that planted buffer to be more in keeping with the other boundaries, because that area is, as you said, described very accurately, a transition. And I think, a little bit more, planted material along that side would be appreciated, not required. And then also, a reduction in the parking count. If you could increase the tree count in the parking area, that would be desirable, not required. And then lastly, on the plan, the bicycle parking in the plan northeast, or it's really the south, I guess it's the southeast corner of there, seems to be uncovered. Is there a better place for that? And it doesn't seem to be secure. Again, that's just a suggestion. It's not a condition.
we can certainly look at that, and we appreciate the suggestion.
Yeah, and it's a very thoughtful design. And what caliper of trees are you going to put in the parking lot? I know you had it in the plan. I just didn't catch that.
Mr. Raines is looking there.
3.5 to 4 inch.
Okay, great. All right, thank you for a thoughtful plan, and it is clearly an improvement over that quirky building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, good plan. It is.
Commissioner Pikowski.
I appreciate Commissioner Randolph's concerns of the parking. I actually have a different perspective. I like the fact that there is more parking because I see If you do have visitors, if these tenants have visitors, I can see the parking then overflowing into that road, which is a very busy road, and it definitely doesn't, is not suitable for side street parking. And just clarification, that's not the McDonald's parking lot. That is a doctor's office. That's my children's doctor, yeah. So there's actually a buffer. So I think the vegetation looks really, it's great, man.
Anybody?
To the north, plan north, that's not McDonald's right next to it?
It's
Oh, it's-
not.
Oh, it's not? Okay, I was.
There's an actual, like, there's like a strip of a driveway,
Yeah,
and then the McDonald's drive-through is where.
okay,
1817 Black Rock Turnpike.
okay. Commissioner Harrison.
Yeah, I had a question. It is a beautiful design. I have to say, a million years ago, that was my pediatrician's office. And tired back then, a long time ago. I just question, is there a visitors parking there?
On our,
Yeah, or is it just designated by,
we have not designated any visitor parking,
okay.
just, yeah, we have not done that.
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Prokowski. I would like to, I'm comfortable with going a little less of our requirements, but that is a busy road. I would hate to see excess parking going there because it is a busy road.
See you, Commissioner Braun.
And can you talk to me about the garbage situations? Like how does
Yes.
that work?
Garbage.
Oh, I'm skipping ahead.
It's that corner.
Right.
Well, before you, Commissioner Braun, do you have a question for Mr. Raines?
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as, parking, yeah, I'm concerned because I would not want to have overflow parking on this. I don't even know if you can park on that side road near my house, but it doesn't make sense. And these are kind of like luxury apartments, except for the two affordable. So I assume people will have the maximum number of cars that are allowed.
Yeah, we, those comments were very much in our mind when we tried to find the balance between not over parking the site so that we give Eric an opportunity to do something really special with the landscaping, but at the same time, making sure we have adequate on-site parking. And that's why we erred on the side of caution and didn't apply the ITE standard, but exceeded that somewhat substantially.
Thank you. Next.
I can answer the garbage question.
Oh, yes, garbage chair.
So if you see in the plant, the north side of the, planned north side of the building, that bump out, and the footprint of the
Point to
building.
that a little more clearly.
Well, I'm sorry.
There, okay.
So on the north side of the building, you see that bump, the footprint bump. So that's an exit, that's a door. So residents would come from there. The dumpster would actually be located in that upper right corner next to the bicycle racks. So we showed it as green, but it's actually where the dumpster would be.
I assume probably in its current state right now, there is just a dumpster too, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And then just for lighting, would there be a lot more lighting at night versus an office building which shuts down, 5 or 6 o'clock?
Yes, the lighting because of the residential use, you'd probably keep.
What's the feedback from neighbors?
Yeah, they were pleased that, we told them that, and Eric can elaborate, that our lighting plan would ensure that there'd be no light trespass off our site, that we would use state-of-the-art fixtures, and maybe you could elaborate, Eric, a little bit on that to ensure no light trespass or whatever, and they were satisfied.
And then along with that, the average calculation is 0.5 foot candles, which is basically full moon level.
Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Raines? Then I will turn it over to our architect, Alex Esposito, who'll give you a brief overview in terms of our architectural design, exterior design.
Good evening. Everyone, can we look at the floor plans?
Yep.
Existing building has 2 entries, 2 egress staircases, an elevator, and a central hallway. And we based our design on maintaining that. So we built the units around that without significant change. Our client was adamant about getting rid of the flat roof. Went to a pitch roof, which also I think helps the aesthetics because it's more of a suburban residential feeling. And that's how we captured the duplexes, the 2-bedroom units, using that roof. We're maintaining is all the window openings are existing. The only change being we're lowering the sill, we're maintaining the lintel, the head, the jambs, lowering the sill to get a code compliant egress window. We'll be using and obviously energy efficient windows as opposed to the old units that are there now. So John pointed out, not much increase in the footprint. The only increase is on the lower left here, you'll see a ramp we're adding, a wheelchair accessible ramp, and the entrance portico. There's a platform with some steps, as I'm sure you're familiar with. We're expanding that a little bit to create more of a real sense of entry, covered. And other than that, we're not increasing the footprint at all. Heating and air conditioning ventilation will be packaged individual units under the windows for electric units for each apartment. Can we go to the elevations? Now, obviously, we're removing that very dated mansard roof, keeping the brick on the lower level, but we're whitewashing it because there will be some cutting and so forth for the heating units and the new windows. Above where the mansard is now will be fiber cement shingles, replicating wood shingles, monochromatic white. The building has a very horizontal feel. By using one color, I think it gives it a better proportion. The roof, as opposed to using a regular gable roof, we're using this Dutch hip. That's in deference to our neighbors on boroughs. Rather than your sense of height is really the vertical wall. The roof pitches away from them before you see any gable. And also bear in mind, there's a 5-foot retaining wall on that property line. So they're already elevated. And I had a conversation with Mr. Novak, who lives just beyond that. He was very happy with how we're treating that roof. So it's much less imposing, a roof. Other than that, I think after these elevations, the next slide is a photograph of the existing building from Katona, and then John stole my my grand finale.
I couldn't resist, but put it up there again.
That's the same view of the proposed design.
Thank you, Alex.
Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Esposito? Oh, Commissioner Bukowski.
I really like this design, definitely a much needed upgrade. I like the color choices. I love the whitewash brick. I like how you're keeping the brick. I did have a couple of questions about the dormers because I'm really big on symmetry, and it seems like these dormers up top are not as there seems to be something a little bit off about their placement. I'm sure obviously there's a reason for it, but is there a way to line them up?
What's going on below?
Yes, like for instance, the larger dormer on the left, and then it seems like there's shuttered dormers, and then there are window dormers.
The larger dormers reflect the units below.
Can you show Ms. Harrigan what you're looking at?
Yes.
Yes, maybe the elevations would show that
Let's go to that
best.
one.
Yes, sweet. It's
This would not be-
Yes.
yes, page 28. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harrigan.
They really work with what's going on with the unit below. You know, we have a staircase up to this bedroom and bath and so forth.
Okay.
So I know they don't align. The other dormers, which are mostly cosmetic, some may be used for an air handler for the common areas. And we've been working conceptually with Southport Associates for HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and they're gonna need some of that for makeup air and exhaust.
Okay.
And other than that, it's more a matter of just kind of filling some space.
Okay. Right. The louver vents, yeah, they seem to align with the windows below. It's just that one, it's like if it could be like centered somehow, those two. I just feel
Smaller?
like
Some dormers or
the larger dormers, right, like that larger dormer to the left, if like it were just centered right over that window below it. And then if the one to the right were centered in between the two windows below it.
if you look at the plan, they align with the unit below that they put.
Right. So there's just no way of,
You know, Windows, again, we're trying to economize here a bit. This is a big step for our client. He's never done development before.
Got it, got it.
By trying to maintain some of these elements, trying to make this economically viable.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, and then I just had one other comment, and I don't mean to be critical, just aesthetics wise.
I'm used to it.
Thank you, appreciate it. The door and the window above it feel like very town hall-like to me, as opposed to the rest of the building, which feels very residential. So that was just a piece of feedback that I wanted to give. But really excited about this change.
Look at the existing building, the staircase actually does not, the landing doesn't come all the way to the exterior wall. It's actually looking down, it's sort of like a landing is a balcony looking below.
Okay,
So it's a two-story space in there.
okay.
So we thought capturing the light and a nice window helps. Town hall, done enough Greenwich residences to know that we do a lot of that.
Do that, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito.
Any other questions, Mr. Esposito?
Yeah, it's Jeff. Just one,
Oh, yeah.
two comments, well, three comments. One, it is a market improvement over the Porky building that's there now and much more in line with residential. Two, and these are not conditions, but just suggestions. The proportions of the overhang seem a little bit meager. You know, the roof seems to come straight down to the sidewall. You know, if you look at what you know, all those buildings over by the Delamar look like, there's more of a pronounced overhang. And then secondly, you know, back to your comment about your client not having done, I guess economizing is what you're trying to say. Some operable shutters might soften up the building a little bit. It's pretty stark looking right now. And again, those are two take it or leave it suggestions. So
Regarding the overhang, it's about 10 inches. And obviously, when you look at the scale of the building, you know, for a two-story.
not much. Yeah. I've been looking at on Park Avenue, you see a lot of similar type buildings that since I saw your renderings, I've been looking at those, and it's just a little bit, just look at the stuff over by the Delamar has a more pronounced overhang. And then a lot of the buildings on Park Avenue at Bridgeport, similar style to this, you know, but the original things have more, but that's a take it or leave it suggestion. And then the shutters, right now it's a little stark looking. And I know you're tied to the window openings, but some shutters might soften it up, but that's a take it or leave it suggestion as well. So,
On your first point, I definitely will look at creating a little larger overhang. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Regarding the shutters, this is interesting because I worked on a historic house recently in Tarrytown, and we had existing doubled windows, paired double hungs, and I put shutters, and the comment by the Architectural Review Board is, I don't like shutters when they don't really work, because really you see shutters on single windows. I don't have a problem with that, and I will propose that to my client.
thank you for being open to these arbitrary suggestions.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Seaver.
Alex. Before,
Commissioner Seaver.
yes, before I introduce Mr. Sepola,
You have Ms. Commissioner Seaver, do you have a question?
Martin, we hadn't,
Just one quick one.
oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner. Yes,
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Commissioner.
And
Sepola.
maybe not for you to answer, but being in IT, I just want to make sure, because we're going from a commercial building to a rental residential building. So I assume that the infrastructure is built so that the renter can bring in whatever services they need, whether, you know, for cable TV, for internet, I would assume that it's designed for the renter to be able to bring those services in each of the 18 units. Is that the right assumption?
It's a good assumption. I don't have the answer, but we will be working with electrical engineers and our clients, sir.
You have the landlord, right?
The landlord, yeah. So
That each unit is wired.
I think you have to.
that I would certainly So I don't think I've ever done that.
Yeah,
I can't imagine you'll be able to rent it if you could get internet.
I never assumed.
Well, we'll certainly put that to the top of the list in terms of reminding the landlord, the developer, that's gotta be done in.
You would think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna rent them if they're not wired for everything. So, yeah, thank you.
I usually do the electrical outletting and switching layout. I always put locations for TVs.
Yeah.
You know, and be wired for cable, and so forth.
Thank you.
Commissioner Harrison.
Good question. I'm not sure if it's for you, but maybe for Mr. Fallon. Are there any issues with delivery times, or do you envision any issues? We've talked this before on other applications.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, we have the loading dock for larger deliveries, and we feel that we have 18 units in the unit mix that we have, and the sufficiency of parking so that, you know, as we've talked about another app, an Uber driver or somebody like that, there should not be a problem parking for a delivery of that type.
Commissioner Braun.
And they expanded the sidewalks to be 6 feet wide. They were changed. Okay.
I guess with delivery folks, they would just go through that main door. Is that right?
Yes, for that, correct.
Is there like a mail area there? Like how do people get mail or packages? Is there like a package room?
Alex, if we designated a mailing area or where mail will be delivered?
Yes, inside the building, back on the east. First floor, if you go back just a little bit, there you go. There's a mail area just inside that entry. If you see the elevator, thank you. Right here, mail and package area. And these things are very sophisticated now, if you know it. The mailman, if there's a big box, they're bins or you know, if you can put it, it's not proprietary to any particular unit, but they text the tenant, give them a code, and they can go retrieve, you know.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
So before I call on Mr. Sepola, we owe Commissioner Braun an answer, which Mr. Martin will give in terms of the impervious area reduction and where that is occurring.
Yes, good evening, Dean Martin, Department of Engineering. Yes, the reduction in surface was realized due to the planting islands, and that's essentially it.
I could have known that. Thank you.
Because we didn't have to add any stormwater systems to what we're doing now.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I'm glad you asked the question though, because Mr. Martin came all the way down here. Now he's fully participated. Thank you, Dean. Steve Sepola is well known to you all, I think. He is principal at Hardesty in Hanover. He authored the traffic evaluation that I think is pretty self-evident. I don't want to steal his thunder, but he'll briefly summarize that for you. Any questions you might have?
Good evening, guys. Steve Sepola, Senior Traffic Engineer with Hardesty in Hanover. We prepared the traffic evaluation for this proposed land use change. I'll start off with our figure 1, our current street system characteristics. We have the building in Kakoma Avenue. It's a wide roadway that provides parking generally along both sides of the road with intermittent, no parking generally around, you know, the curb cuts and the commercial area. We looked at the latest 3 years of crash data along Katona between Black Rock Turnpike and Bel Air Lane, which is the first public intersection to the south. And we found that there was a total of 2 accidents over those 3 years. We bring up table 2. It's the next one. I think that's table.
Is that table 3, Emily?
Should be the one above it.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
That's okay. So for our site traffic estimates, we used the Institute of Transportation Engineers ITE Trip Generation Handbook, 11th edition. For the existing office, it's estimated that that would generate a total of 27 vehicles in the AM and 26 vehicles in the PM. For the proposed residential, the 18 units, that's estimated to generate a total of 7 vehicles in the morning and 9 in the afternoon. The net reduction for the land use change is 20 vehicles in the morning and 17 in the afternoon. Based on the reduction in traffic, the surrounding roadways and intersections should continue to operate similarly and most likely better than existing conditions, with no anticipated significant impacts. The existing curb cut locations will remain the same, with the southerly driveway as an entrance only, and the northerly driveway will remain as an exit only with counterclockwise internal circulation. If you could go to the next table. As Attorney Fallon mentioned, we did a parking needs analysis. Town code requires 3 spaces per unit, 54 spaces. Our applicant is providing 44 spaces. We reviewed the latest ITE parking generation manual. And for a residential development of this type, a parking ratio of 1.52 spaces per unit is required, which is 28 spaces. Based on this parking needs analysis, the applicant is providing a slightly more than 2.4 spaces per unit, which is more than sufficient for this type of development. If there's any questions?
Yeah, the layman in me wants to just emphasize again that one of the other benefits of this development is the reduction in vehicular traffic associated with the change of use. We're going from 27 and 26 weekday peak trips to 7 and 9. And I know there's always concern and considerations in that area of town relative to traffic volume. So I think this is another net positive of this change of use. Any questions from Mrs. Sabo?
Commissioner Harrison.
When was the traffic study done?
It's dated
I'm just not seeing.
February 8th, 2024.
Any questions for Mrs. Sapola?
Hearing any, so.
So
I've got
Oh, I'm
2
sorry.
questions. Steve,
Go ahead,
2
Commissioner
questions for
Randolph.
Steve. Yep. Hey, Steve, thanks so much. What was the severity of the 2 accidents?
So both accidents were property damage only. There was no injuries involved.
Okay.
One was
good.
an angle collision and one was a side swipe
Okay, no,
collision.
that's fine. So just 2 property, so nothing severe.
No
and then,
severe. Yep.
Yeah, and then on the parking count, how many bedroom units do we have total? Like how many bedrooms are there in the unit in the complex?
Yeah, I believe that's correct, but we've got 4 2-bedrooms, so that's 8. 2
Yep.
studios, so we'll call those ones, so that's 10. And then 12 1-bedrooms, so 22 bedrooms total.
So 44 spaces. I'm sorry, how many spaces do we have? 44?
We're proposing 44.
44 for 22. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. So we're way over. So, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a very long summary.
I guess, and nothing for Mr. Cipolla, so you're all set, sir. Remind me about the reduction, though. That's allowed in our regulations.
Yeah, under your regulations, section 28.6.1, yeah, for a residential development in the design commercial districts, you are charged with the discretion to reduce the required parking by up to 50%. In this case, based upon your current regulations that prescribe 3 spaces per unit, the required parking here is 54 spaces. So that a 50% reduction could yield
7-ish?
yes, 27 spaces. We're proposing 44. So rather than a 50% reduction, as your regs allow you the discretion to grant, our reduction is only 19%. from 54 to 40.
Commissioner Corsillo?
I'll just add on that, I do agree with Commissioner Randolph. I think we do have, I would like to see a further reduction in spaces, understanding why you opted not to go with the full allowable 50% reduction, but I would prefer to see a further reduction from where you are, and I think that space, I think it was a great landscaping plan, but the addition of some more canopy trees in lieu of some of that parking space.
We will discuss, I mean, something that's in our discretion that we can discuss. Correct. It's the first time asking for reduced parking.
But it's fine. I mean, I appreciate the sentiments, and from where the commissioners, Commissioner Corsillo and Commissioner Randolph and maybe others are coming. I mean, obviously, Mr. Raines is such a talent that he, you know, you see his work and you say, we need more of that. And you're not wrong. So all I would say is we leave that to your discretion. We know you'll be sensitive to ensuring that we have a very viable product from the standpoint of tenant marketing. And also, I guess Commissioner Braun's comment too, as far as, you know, we want to make sure we have enough parking on site that we don't have to worry about overfull parking on the street. And whatever balance you find there in the context, we hope, of an approval, we'll be happy to abide by.
Just one last comment on that. We have way too much asphalt in town and not enough trees.
You're here.
You found more?
Yeah, my long summary. The proposed utilization of the existing building for residential purposes, we believe, is very much in harmony with the character of the neighborhood. Far less intrusive than a mixed-use development or a more intense residential development might have been. We've reached out to our neighbors. We hope and believe they concur in that assessment. I kept wanting to show you that rendering because I think the exterior improvements to the building are beautiful and have been sensitively and architecturally designed by Mr. Esposito to ensure that we've got something that's going to be very attractive, have a very positive impact on this important part of our community, and really give a sort of gateway effect to the residential character of the neighborhood as it abuts Black Rock Turnpike. So for all those reasons, we hope you will approve this application. We appreciate, as always, your kind attention, your thoughtful comments, and good evening.
Thank you. I'll end the initial presentation portion of this application. I will open it up to public comments. Is there any member of the public in person that wishes to be heard on this application? Seeing nobody in person. Is there anybody joining us remotely or by phone that wishes to be heard on this application at 60 Katona Drive? If you are joining by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Ms. Harrigan, anybody in the chat? Last call, any member of the public in person, remote, or by phone that wishes to be heard on this application? Hearing nobody, seeing nobody, I'll close the public comment portion of the application. All set on your end, I assume?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll close the hearing on this application and adjourn the meeting.
Thank you all very much. Have a good
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Chair. I'll